Welcome to the Authority File. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. My guest for this series of episodes is Dr. Stella Tikachova, a project manager in the European space industry. She's previously been a project manager for Thales Alenia Space and has managed long-term research projects for the European Commission. She is the author of Emerging Space Markets, published by Springer. She's currently at work on another book and has hosted a Springer Nature video seminar called The Emerging Lunar Economy. Springer Nature is the sponsor of this series. As you can tell from Dr. Tikachova's bio, we'll be talking about space, particularly the fact that it's no longer a Cold War-style race between the US and Russia to be the first to reach some interplanetary milestone. The space market has gone decidedly commercial, as if Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson haven't made that obvious already. Even so, commercial space travel is only the tip of the Martian iceberg. More than simply a check mark on a billionaire's bucket list, the rapidly growing space market has shifted from government agencies to the private sector, with the two now collaborating on developing a diverse economy around habitation and research, lunar construction, satellite manufacturing and servicing, launch services, and who exactly is going to be cleaning up the clouds of space debris floating around up there. And as you can imagine, all of this has had quite an impact on the research and institutional landscape that feeds into the space market. In this third episode, we get an international perspective on space exploration and travel, who the major players are, and what lunar exploits are still there for the taking. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of just how the market is evolving from a competitive standpoint, and particularly from a governmental perspective. How is the balance of power, so to speak, shifting in space exploration and development among countries across the globe?
Well, I would like to talk maybe more about how it's shifting between institutional and commercial customers. Space agencies are changing with setting up new programs, as I already mentioned. And they're actually seeing themselves more like intermediates to encourage market development and to encourage innovation, technology innovation. And for example, European Space Agency has set a number of public-private partnerships following similar models where innovation for developing innovations are funded with institutional money, but actually the private companies or the industries are themselves finding the end customers. So it's changed. Years ago, let's say space agencies wanted to have much more to control industry and companies on how they build their technologies or what innovations they develop. But now they're much more opening to innovative ideas, and they want to create the condition, at least in Europe, I would say. I think it's similar in the US, to create the correct conditions for these companies to grow and develop. Mm-hmm. So it's changing quite a lot.
Right. So how does that look, I guess, from in terms of the countries that are driving the market? I mean,
the leader is the US.
Okay.
That's clear. The leader is the US in certain domains like commercial launch services, commercial cargo and crew launch services. So there is no doubt. Also, there are a lot of American companies who have also developed CubeSats for Earth observation, like companies like Planet and so on. We witnessed, I would say, almost last year, it was the launch of the Dragon capsule to the space station. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think that commercial space stations, like also with the Axiom space station, so it's also the US, the leader. And then for the lunar exploration, I would say it's I'm not quite sure, because there is, I would say, there is a competition in a way, because US has set up the NASA Lunar Catalyst program. The next step, there are a number of programs which are already existing for encouraging lunar exploration, and a lot of US companies are actually working very actively, but also in Europe. ESA has set up, and the European Union is also looking, but mainly ESA has set up a space resource utilization strategy. There is the Moonlight Initiative. There are so many activities happening too. So I cannot say that it's only one country there, but
Yep.
the lunar exploration will be the one which will be, I would see, most competition between countries, because the Chinese and the Russians, they recently actually announced a partnership for building a lunar research station for exploring the lunar surface.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of activities happening, let's say, and there will be a lot of competition.
Okay. So I'm curious about that. You mentioned the competition, but it seems like, from an international perspective, different countries and different regions are each finding their own niches, so to speak, in the market. I'm wondering if there will also be this naturally cooperative effort in certain respects, where
No,
maybe
yes and
no,
no. I
yes,
think
no,
there will
okay,
be cooperative effort between Europe and the US and
okay,
Canada and JAXA. I mean, cooperative effort with the traditional partners, let's say, from the space station, excluding Russia. And then, uh, no, I think there will be an increased competition, let's say, with the Russians and the Chinese. But
yeah,
if 20 years ago there was only, let's say, the two powers were the US, 25 years ago, the two major driving powers were the US and the Russians. Today we have a third big player, which is China.
China, yeah, okay,
And this is changing completely the paradigm and also pushing the industry to in the US and in Europe to remain competitive and to develop new technologies, to go first and
Hmm.
perform new technology innovations on the moon.
Okay, so that's interesting. So as China has entered the market, it's kind of caused a speeding up of development,
It's
and
disrupting it, yeah,
yeah,
because now there is the Artemis program for launching astronauts on the lunar surface by 2024. But if most probably the Chinese will be aiming to have a research station by 2030 together with the Russians. So it will be extremely competitive environment.
hmm. So the moon seems to be an easy target for the space market. How has lunar exploration evolved, and how have business and governmental entities evolved along with it?
Well, it's a good question. Actually, I recently published a webinar again with Springer called the Emerging Lunar Economy,
Hmm.
and it's evolved. It's completely changed in the last years. If several years ago there was a very, let's say, there was no long-term vision, now there is a very clear roadmap what the global space industry and want to achieve with lunar exploration. So there will be probably lunar habitats in a few years. There are already a number of companies building lunar rovers and robots. There is already ideas, and there are already technologies being developed for using lunar water for propellant, for performing 3D printing using lunar sand, for as in situ resource utilization. But the most interesting market, I think, will be the communication, navigation, lunar communication and navigation services, and the transportation. So this is the one which I think, will grow and emerge, will develop really fast.
And what do you mean by communication and navigation? Like literally
On the
those
lunar
on the
surface,
moon? Yeah. Okay.
this is the one which I think will really grow fast.
Okay. And I can't help asking, as you mentioned earlier, like the moon is becoming sort of a major competitive goal among various countries. You know, inhabiting the surface of the moon, are we going to see little America and little Russia and little China on the moon, or how do you see that kind of, evolving as countries sort of stake their claim on the surface of the moon?
Well, the way I see it is that basically we'll be having yes, pretty much what you say. There will be probably Europe with the US and with Japan and Canadian Space Agency and other countries. And there will be also, on the other hand, there will be the Russians together with the Chinese. But the interesting part is that both Russia and China, they're open, actually. They're completely open for developing for having new partners. So
Oh.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there are other small countries who joined their, let's say, lunar research station.
Okay.
Countries which probably do feel dominated from the other countries. So I have no idea, but honestly, we don't know how it will all evolve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now it's still in the border of science fiction.
Yeah, it's true. You just heard from Dr. Stella Tikachova, an author and project manager in the European space industry. Springer Nature is a sponsor of this series. Join us next week for a discussion on upcoming milestones we're expected to reach, the growing problem with space debris, and how educational needs and trends are evolving for those interested in space exploration and research.
In Europe, they realized that a lot of the ideas comes from the research community and the scientists. And there are a lot of universities, and like the International Space University at TU Delft, the aerospace faculty, which encourage the creation of new ideas and concepts, where they actually bring together not only the researchers, but also the companies. So they create technology spin-offs. They reach the end user. So it's extremely important.
As always, sponsorship and advertising for the Authority File podcast are handled by Choice's advertising manager, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced by Choice's senior digital media producer, Mark Dirks, and digital media assistant, Sabrina Kofer. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.